Welcome back to the Science of Wellness. Today we're diving into the powerful intersection of gut health, real food nutrition, and what it truly means to create wellness that lasts. I'm joined by Carl Joyce, the founder of FiiHii. It is a UK-based wellness brand that's reimagining how we think about fiber and the gut-brain connection. After a deeply personal journey navigating gut and mental health challenges, both for himself and his son, Carl set out to build something radically honest in the nutrition space. The result is Frinks, a whole food, high fiber smoothies made with over 30 plant-based ingredients and no additives. In today's episode, we'll explore the story behind FiiHii. We'll also look at why fiber is still the unsung hero of nutrition, what most health drinks get wrong, and how real ingredients can drive real transformation. So let's get into it. Welcome, Carl, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Herno. Lovely to be here.
So, Carl, my first question is, and it's also a question that I ask all the guests on the podcast, is what does wellness specifically mean to you personally? And how has your definition evolved over time?
I mean, it's changed a lot over time, to be honest. But for me, wellness means a balance on various different factors, whether it's environmental, stress management in particular, nutrition, exercise, and community. So it's about having a balance for all of that so that we sort of operate at our best. So that's what wellness means for me. Historically, I'd be happy to say that I used to think it was a bit woolly and a bit of fluff, to be honest with you, in a typical, I guess, masculine male manner. I guess that would be, I think quite a lot of guys would probably think that way or used to, but it's definitely changed now and for the better. Sometimes you have to go through certain things to sort of really take stock and realize that, the importance of what wellness is. But yeah, for me, it's about balance and it's about reducing stress, because that is an insidious thing. And it filters into every fibre of our being. And it has to manifest somewhere. So it has to manifest in some form or another. So having good wellness optimised across those factors is number one for reducing stress, really. So yeah, that's ultimately it's about being as balanced as possible, and so you could be as best as possible, and for yourself and for your loved ones all around you.
Amazing. I like that you mentioned balance. And I think some people have a completely different meaning to balance. They just think how to optimize whatever I'm doing so that I can perform better. But I'm really glad that you said for your work, but also for your loved ones. That is very important to me.
I think it's important. I think on the face of it, it's important for everyone, but it's very easy to forget. It's very easy to just go on autopilot and life takes over, work takes over, other factors take over and priorities, and then before you know it, you kind of find yourself on a different path. So I think everyone would like to think, what you just outlined there, but the reality is life pulls and pushes you in different places, doesn't it?
Now that you mentioned that, I will really want to get into your story. What inspired you to launch your company? And what problem were you the most passionate about solving with this?
So there's so many layers to this. There's a lot of layers to this. To be fair, the trigger was my son. So he had some stomach problems at the time. He's about 3.5 now, just over 3.5, approaching 4. So he was just about coming up 2, but he had stomach problems and he was in agony, absolute agony. For those of you parents, I'm rubbing my hands now because my palms are sweating thinking about it. It's just his cry went straight through me. It does now, to be honest. I just wanted to find a solution. Doctors were pretty much normal for his age type thing, particularly if you're going through potty training and all this sort of stuff. But he had infection and he was just in agony. And I was like, this isn't normal. It's not normal. So I just rabbit holed, basically, and just done a load of research, trying to find solutions and understanding. And it all pointed towards fibre and the benefits of that and the importance of that on your gut and ultimately your mind. I come across a study at the time, which was that one allocated just over 80% or so, but it was a study on the vagus nerve. I mean, I'd done A-level biology. I was pretty good at it, to be honest, but I'd never come across this. But this particular study had said that the bidirectional traffic, so about 80%, was from the gut to the brain. and 20% was from your brain to the rest of your body. And I thought to myself, at that moment, I was like, well, if he's got gut problems, how's that going to impact his cognitive development potentially? And I got a little bit panicky about it, to be honest. And I was like, well, that needs to change. I don't really want that manifesting into something else. So that's where it triggered. But then actually, I reflected upon my own troubles over the last, prior to that, for the previous 12 to 18 months. And I hadn't realised it. But when I actually started reverse engineering, going back through that time, I was under enormous stress, enormous strain, and the impact of that on my body. My son was abducted, and I had to go through a high court battle to get him back into the country. And it was completely out of the blue. It was horrific, quite frankly. And I'm not an ill person, but I had stomach ulcers. My eating was terrible. Obviously, it was all stress related as well. And you could really feel it in your body. And when I didn't realise it at the time. And it was only when Max had his moments that I kind of reflected upon it. And then I went a little bit further back, and actually there's stomach problems all the way through my family. So it's quite common. And then I realised quite a lot of people have issues. And then I started doing more research, and there was a lack of, got the fibre gap in Western diets in particular, linked to Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, increase in cancers, particularly as younger men in particular, type 2 diabetes. My mum's type 2 diabetic, obesity, and it can all be attributed in some form. Obviously, there's loads of research currently going on, and it's continuous, but it can all be attributed in some form or another to what we're eating. And I took it for granted. I never really, when you're a bit younger, you're infallible, untouchable. It doesn't matter. As you get a little bit older, and particularly when you have kids, you're like, oh, I need to try and stay around for as long as possible. So, you start thinking about it a little bit better, or more intensely, I should say. So I thought, well, how many people under extreme stress? How many people are on autopilot? How many people think they're eating well, but they're not? And what is this impact? You can see it in the UK in particular. There was talks about productivity issues for over 20 years or so. And is this a mental thing? And is this attributed to not eating properly? Because we've seen an increase in how much of our calorific intake is from ultra-processed foods, for example. And I'm thinking, all of these little breadcrumbs, they're all there. It's all like it's there for all to see, but it's piecing it all together, and how can you help? How can you address these really big societal issues? And it's quite simple. And I think, well, ultimately, if you eat better, have more plants in your diet, increase your fibre, if you have a healthier gut, sends healthier signals to your brain. You think better, you act better, your aura is better, everyone else around you is more positive as a result. It's just a knock-on chain effect. And this is how I view it, this is how I think. And it comes back to that original point. How can you reduce stress in your body? And for me, that's one of them. So not long after I found this paper, I had some blood tests, and I was kind of dabbling with what to do. And I knew something was up with my body. And it turns out, doctor said, no, nothing wrong. Went again, no, nothing wrong. Third time I was like, I'm telling you, something's up. Come back, and it's like, oh yeah, there is something. And I got a tumour on my pituitary gland. I'm fortunate in that it's practically the only one that doesn't need operating on at the moment. So obviously you have some medication to manage that. But this all happened in the space of a couple of months. And it's kind of what I touched upon earlier, like stress has to manifest itself somewhere. And it doesn't surprise me that it manifested itself initially in my gut with the stomach ulcers, and then in my mind, or in my head. So for me, it may seem a little bit woolly to say a word from earlier, but for me, this was very eye-opening. It's very obvious to me, the link and what needs addressing. So I looked into the FiiHii properly because I really wanted to address those challenges. And I'm the target market. I'm relatively smart. I'm a professional. I was doing exercise quite regularly. I'm now a parent. These are all our target markets. And so I know the demographic well. And I know from speaking to lots of friends that everyone's in the same boat. So how can I provide clean, proper nutrition to the masses? That's true and honest. So yeah, that's 50,000 foot story as to where we come from and why. There's a whole load of stuff I could probably go into, but you probably need a little bit longer for the podcast.
How you got to this point, your journey of starting the company, it is shocking and unbelievable. And I'm so glad you got through that you are here today and making a difference, because now what you are doing, it's needed in the world. And we do need someone like you spreading the message of why gut health is important, why fiber is important. And also then knowing the target market intimately, because you are the target market, it makes a world of difference. While you were telling your life story, got goosebumps and had to be horrific to go through it. And I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Well, I mean, yes, and in a weird way, no. Because had I not, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So, it's every cloud has a silver lining, as it were. It is what it is. I've toyed for many years with setting up different companies over the years, and I never did. And there was never anything that I never really properly believed in or felt that had genuine meaning. So historically, it was sort of IT and cybersecurity background, always in some sort of business capacity or sales orientated. So it was something or nothing. But this for me is, like you said, it is needed. It is needed. And to be honest, at the time, I saw it, and I see fibre as where protein is now. It is going to go, and it's not a fad. It's been, this sort of stuff isn't new. People have just forgotten, and it's just a case of reminding people of the importance of it. I look at my grandparents, and they're still alive, 88 and 86 respectively. There's nothing wrong with them. Nothing wrong with them. And that's because they eat simple. They don't eat rubbish that a lot of us have grown up on now. And I honestly believe that.
So my mom is turning 72 next week. Okay, so this recording is in April. She's turning 72 next week, and I have been hammering on her to not eat any ultra processed foods, because now, okay, there's a difference between processed and ultra processed, and I always thought, no, processed is the problem, but it's ultra processed. I also want to see her getting to 88 to 86. That would be amazing. Now I just want to ask you, the name FiiHii, it is very unique. Now, where did that come from?
So, so I was toying with little words, and initially it started as high fiber, so HIFI, but I can't have hi-fi because that's a stereo. So I just turned it round, and I was like FiiHii, and then I went to go get the domain name, and it was bought sometime in 1998 by someone, and they wanted 80 grand for it. And I'm like, nope. So I just added an I on each one. But also, I'm quite proud of this, to be honest. But the two I's are representative. So it's like me and my son type thing. And also in our logo in particular, one of them anyway, it's like a pause button. So it's the two lines. And it's about just stop for a moment, think, take a breath, get out of autopilot. What is it that you're eating? What is it that you need to do? And about that balance piece. So it's all intertwined, and that's how it came about. From something so silly to something relatively meaningful, I think.
It is very meaningful. That is an amazing description of a name, because usually it's just something that comes along, but you've clearly given it a lot of thought and meaning. No, it's amazing. Okay, now with FiiHii and what you are selling, you've taken a step by creating a whole food product that is not just another shake or a powder. Why was it so important for you to move away from synthetic nutrition and focus on real ingredients?
This stemmed from a lot of group chats, actually, that I had with some of my friends. And a lot of it was bro science, and it kills me. I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. And it was a bit of friction in some of it. And I just thought, do you know what? Our bodies, look, there's trillions of bacteria in our gut for a reason. And it's about evolution. What have we evolved on? We've evolved on eating real food, proper food. And I always try and link back to evolution because, everything's there for a reason. And it's tried and tested for a long period of time across many, many generations. So I really do believe that the answer to everything is as natural as possible. So I don't agree with synthetic stuff. And to be honest, in my earlier days when I was younger, I did used to have quite a lot of the synthetic bits. I had caffeine tablets, I mean, there's creatine, which is obviously, there's loads of research now, which is coming out as quite good. All the protein shakes, all of that sort of stuff. When I was a younger man in the gym and that, and my body wasn't good, and I could feel it. I could feel it in my neck, I could feel it in my shoulders, and I'd get nosebleeds all the time. Like, I wasn't sleeping well, and of course, there's all sorts of different factors that could play into this, like stress, age, But there's no substitute for natural, in my view. So yeah, if you look at all it's not all the ingredients, but some of the ingredients that are in foods these days where it's not natural, and then you link it with an increase in people becoming sicker. We get now a sicker population. Again, there's lots of different variables which could be attributed to this, but for me, it's quite obvious, it's quite apparent that the more we move away from the natural, the more problematic it becomes for us. And I mean, if you really want to get philosophical, we can go broader and look at the world that we live in now as we detach ourselves from nature, and how everything with global warming and resource sort of stripping of our globe, and everything's becoming out of balance. And that's, you don't beat Mother Nature. And I think as humans, we're quite arrogant, we're ignorant as well, and we think we can control everything, and nature knows.
Time and again that we see, if you go back to the basics of what it should be, you will be healthier, less inflammation, better sleep, and then eventually less stress as well, because you're closely linked to nature. Your company focuses mainly on gut health, but then all the other aspects of gut health, like the gut-brain axis and the vagus nerve. But now specifically on gut health, it is still a concept that is very abstract to a lot of people. So how do you help people feel and see the benefits of better gut health in their everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, it's a new topic, I guess, complex topic. I mean, it's linked to everything, isn't it? So it's naturally going to be complex, but it's been, as we said earlier, it's been around in different cultures for thousands of years. So I think it's just a case of encouraging people to reconnect with themselves and understand their body a little bit more, that what is considered normal isn't normal. And it's just about understanding that. And for me, I always use myself as an example, and it's really basic, but when I had a McDonald's, and we used to joke about this with my friends many years ago, you'd have that feeling afterwards of like, oh my God, what is this? What have I done? The guilt, everything, and you just feel awful. You can feel it through your skin. You can feel how you're thinking you don't want to do anything. And how I sort of position that is that's these signals your gut's saying to your brain and your body, what are you feeding me? What are you doing? This isn't good. And this is your punishment for feeding me rubbish. You will now feel this. And that's how I kind of try to encourage people to think when they eat, junk food or food that isn't very good. It's just about understanding that. And if you do recognise, I feel really lethargic, I feel tired, I've got no energy, and it's about, okay, well, what did you eat? Or what have you not eaten? And that's kind of, okay, well, maybe I should eat a little bit better. I should eat some more plants. I should eat some more fruit, drink some more water. And all of these sort of things can impact and improve your gut health in a really basic way, to be honest. So for me, it's just about recognizing that and trying to help people recognize that on a really easy level, because most of the time they won't. Like we touched upon, gut health it's a slow burn, and everyone wants instant gratification now, don't they? So this is why protein is such a big thing, because you can see it aesthetically. You see big muscles or something like that. But gut health and fibre, you don't see it. It's internal and actually arguably more important. So there is like a disconnect, I think, between people and their expectations. But so it's really a case of marrying that up and helping them, guide them through that, and actually go, bit of patience, recognise what's happening, recognise how you feel at certain points, see, what improvements there have been when you've increased your fibre or you had certain foods, that sort of stuff. So yeah, just about being more in tune with themselves and their body, to be honest.
I love that you said what is considered normal is not normal, because it's not normal to feel sick or to have constant headaches or to feel constantly tired or have joint pain. It's not what we're supposed to feel, especially if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. It's not supposed to hit you then. So amazing that you're saying that. I've also noticed as soon as I start eating some junk food, I immediately feel it.
Yeah.
And I also don't sleep well. So I use fitness trackers, and I usually see with my resting heart rate,
Yeah.
if I eat too much sugar, resting heart rate goes up immediately, at least by 4 or 5 beats per minute. And then HRV goes down. So I know my body isn't recovering anymore. And it's just something simple as what I'm eating.
Yeah. I'm the same, actually. I've noticed about a 10% increase in my average heart rate, my resting heart rate. And actually, when you extrapolate that, you think 10%, oh, that's not that much. Well, it is. It really is. Your heart is working 10% harder doing the same thing just because you've eaten something that isn't right. To be honest, it isn't good. And, you do that every day, that's in my head, it's 10% of your life you just wasted or giving up, basically. That's kind of how I see it in a really crude, basic maths.
So you also mentioned that you have 30 plus plant ingredients, probiotic, prebiotic fibers, and no additives in your product. Okay, so I'm pro the 30 plus plants a week. I absolutely love it. I do the counting thing when I'm in the supermarket. I count how many I have. So I'm definitely a habit of mine now. So can you just walk me through what makes your product different from all the other nutrition drinks on the market?
So, as you said, it's a competitive space. It's getting more competitive. I actually don't see that as a problem. I think it's a good thing because it means there's raising awareness, and ultimately, if a semi-good thing, it depends on what's actually being pumped out there, shall we say. But the fact is, it's bringing it to the light of people to think about it. So I think that's a good thing. And there's lots of people which, you can get fibre powders, for example, or there's lots of companies which offer one particular part of what we offer, but we wanted to cover all of the bases. If we could address 3 key problems in one solution, that's pretty compelling. So as we touched upon earlier, like everyone's cognitive load is so much at the moment. You don't really have enough time to think, to have to plan. It's very difficult. And I actually think it's going to become more challenging. It's just constant cognitive load, information, or too much information, whatever it may be. So people just switch off. That's what happens. And I think that's the danger. And they go into this autopilot mode. So what I'm thinking, if I understand that, how can I ensure that they're going to get the basics, what we consider the basics of nutrition? And this obviously flows downhill. So if you can get it as a parent, then you're more likely to feed your children better. And their life chances are likely to be improved from better school results, from having better gut health, better development in the UK in particular. Now we're seeing children shorter than they used to be just because they're not getting the right nutrition. And this is another part I didn't really touch upon in the initial part of why we set up the company, but that for me is unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable that in the UK that's happening. What I really wanted to do is, so I'll go back to the original part. So when I was looking at schools to put my son in here in London, there was one of the head teachers. She said, we don't allow packed lunches anymore. And I was like, oh, that's weird. But I inquired a little bit more, and she said, well, basically we had kids turning up with a biscuit for the day. And I didn't even know what to say, a biscuit for the whole day at school. And I just thought, 1, that's not nutritious. 2, that kid's going to be starving. 3, if they can't think or like learn, what's that going to impact their grades? And ultimately, in this society, we're sort of judged on how well we do at school, like quite a lot these days still. How does that impact their life chances from the age of 4 or 5? And I thought that's so unfair. That's really, that's not right. And originally, we got off topic a little bit, but it's kind of linked back. But originally, we had nuts in our products. But I took them all out so that we could have these, so that parents could give them to their kids as a minimum. So if they went to school, at least they could have 4 of their 5 a day. At least they could have that. And at least they could get the broad sort of fibre sources, plant sources, and at least they could get half the daily fibre. So those are the 3 key pillars that we focus on for parents and for kids. And I really didn't want to deviate from that. And that was challenging with the product development, to be honest, because it makes it thick. You've got the fibre in there, it's thick. And then there's the texture, there's the taste element of it when you're combining so many plants with actual substance in there. Not necessarily just, because loads of companies in particular just use a lot of apple juice, and that's the bulk of the product, and with a few little bits in there. If you look on lots of different should we say competitors, there's really not much value in there from a real food perspective. And I really wanted to have that so that I could feel comfortable knowing that people are actually getting food and not pretending to be food, not pretending to be a meal replacement. And this comes back to the brand integrity piece, about being transparent, about being honest. So I think that's what really makes our Frinks different. And the reason why I call them Frinks is I touched upon it because of the thickness of the product. It's not quite a food, not quite a drink. So I literally just combined the two words together and made a Frink. And it wasn't trademarked, so I got that done in the UK. So I probably should get that globally now as well. But yeah, so that's why we're different. As I say, there's lots of companies out there which can tap into one particular thing, but we really do address a lot of key things. So you could, and I've done it, you could have these as a meal replacement quite comfortably. You can have it as a snack. It's good for kids, parents. You get your fibre, plants, and nutrition, actual nutrition. So I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I don't know of anything out there that covers all of that, to be honest.
Just for interest's sake, how long is the shelf life of it?
Yeah, so that's the problem. That was the problem early days, because it's got no additives, no emulsifiers, nothing like that of sorts. It was it's a short window. It's a short window. So it's manufactured, it's frozen immediately, it's transported immediately, frozen, and it's transported to customers frozen. So if those are people that have used HelloFresh, for example, I don't mind saying, we pretty much base it on their model. So it's delivered to customer in that way. So in the early days, we had to really test that delivery piece around the packaging, making sure the product integrity was still there once it arrived, making sure that supply chain was really slick, and that was vital, absolutely vital. We initially would say, we were saying 24 hours from defrost, but now really we say 12. We say 12. To be honest, but you take it out the freezer, defrost it in the fridge overnight, and then it's ready to go. But I wouldn't want to be suggesting anything.
Okay, no, because that is great. Then there's not any additives in.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start saying no, it holds for a month, then you already know someone's lying about the ingredients. Yeah. Okay, so you've also said just now with your previous answer, that the cognitive load is getting too much for professionals, for parents, and what parents feed their kids are very important. So what have you learned about the real life challenges people face when they try to eat well under pressure?
Anything that's done under pressure doesn't have longevity. It's very short-lived. So that's where you get the peaks and troughs, the ups and downs, the fads, and that's no good for anyone. As we all know, in whatever we do, consistency is the real route to change, lasting change as well. So the thing I've seen is that's the main issue I think most people face when under pressure. Everyone's time poor. Quite a lot of people know that they need to eat better or should do better, but they're tired, they're exhausted. And so often they commit for a few days, maybe a week, and they drop off because it's just too much to think about. I've done this myself, so I know it very well over the years. I've tried and tested various diets in various forms. I've experimented on myself with these products, with my running, all sorts. So yeah, that's the thing we've seen the most, I think. It's just commitment and staying there. So anything that we can reduce the barrier and the hurdle for people being able to continue as almost as easy as possible on the right path, that's what we try and do. That's why everything's ready-made, ready to eat. Now, there's loads of companies out there, they make you do this, you've got to add this, you've got to do that. That's not with us. You don't have to think. If you're going to be on autopilot, which to be honest, most of us will be on autopilot with something that's actually good, and you're going to get the nutrition for you. So that's kind of my thinking behind it.
That makes complete sense. And I think the ease that you just give parents, for example, that they're actually giving nutritious food to their kids. Okay, so you've also said that you and your son use Frinks. It's great that a founder uses their own products. Now, can you maybe share with me what that experience has been like? So how has it influenced the way that you talk about the product as a founder and as a parent?
Sure. Firstly, it gives you confidence. It gives you confidence because I've felt it, I've lived it, and I know it works. So when you're talking about it, everyone's got different opinions. Some people say, "Oh, you shouldn't eat fruit or veg because it's got all of these chemicals and all of this," and other people say this, this, and this. I know, having done it, I feel the difference, and I've been on the products and off the products, and also, children are unfiltered. They will give you their honest views one way or the other. So I call it the Max test. And to be fair, five of the 6 flavours, he's absolutely all about them. There's one he doesn't, and that's because it's a little bit more bitter. And most kids don't really like bitter things. So this Cape Gooseberry's in it. I've got a really funny video of him, and he's like, and it hits him, and he was like, oh. So that's quite amusing. Yeah. So just from that basis, on those two, just on taste alone. It's quite important. Obviously, we've done loads of market research on this and got a lot of feedback on it and developed and evolved over time. But for me, so I run a reasonable amount, but it can be inconsistent. And I haven't done for the last 3 weeks. But I've been a little bit under the weather. So back in the summer last year, I was using the products for a period of time, and my recovery time was ridiculous. For someone, I hadn't ran for a long period of time. I'm a heavy guy anyway, always have been, but I'm relatively fit. But my recovery time was very good back in the summer. My energy levels were exceptional. My cognitive ability to think and just deal with stuff and just do stuff. I actually didn't need anything more than, I was averaging about 5.5 hours sleep a day, and I was absolutely fine. So I just had this underlying energy, a combination of these factors of being fueled properly, along with the exercise, and the combination of that and the output was exceptional. And I wasn't fit back then. I was not fit at all. And I've come back to the beginning of this year in particular. I mean, I was running half marathons quite comfortably, pretty much weekly in January. I was, pretty fit. And my recovery time, it was about the same. My actual running times were the same as back in the summer. And I wasn't on my products at this point. So it just goes to show that even though I was significantly more fitter, by fueling myself properly back in the summer, the gains you can get just from that. Again, in terms of my gut health, over the last 3 weeks in particular, I haven't really had my products. My weight management was flat. I hadn't gained anyway. I hadn't lost anyway. And in fairness, I was okay. I had the odd bad thing here or there, but it was pretty okay. And now after 3 weeks, I've put on a kilo. So it just goes to show that 3 week sort of cycle for me personally, that it seems to be the case. So which kind of fits in. You start seeing little changes, or you can feel changes after, we say 2 to 3 weeks, but obviously it's a longer period of time. You need probably 3 to 6 months for longevity and real change. But for me, my body's quite responsive to it. From an energy perspective, very quick, 3 days. From an overall gut perspective and weight management perspective, about 3 weeks for me. I was expecting to lose more weight, to be honest, but it was consistent. When I was on it, it was consistently going down, so that was good, and it fits in with everything, all of the papers, everything that all the experts are saying that will happen when you increase your fibre, when you increase plant in your diet. So yeah, that's good. It's nice to know that it works.
Well, I'm glad you have a taste tester with you, but I'm definitely going to look into. You mentioned about your recovery time becoming less. I'm definitely going to read up on that because I would love to see the research behind it and if there's research on it. So glad you mentioned that.
There's a chap, and we're going to be working with a partner as well. He works with elite athletes, so I'm looking to get some longer term studies in place with him as we move forward. But there's a chap on LinkedIn I've been speaking with as well, and he comes up with some really good papers around this, and he specialises in sport, and I think it's with the Scottish Rugby actually, and he posts some great stuff on this, really good stuff, and it's the inflammation in your muscles in particular. I used to struggle with recovery on that, and it was non-existent. Couldn't believe it.
I thought it had something to do with the inflammation. I've also seen that your company FiiHii is also tied to sustainability and reducing plastic waste. So how important is it for nutrition brands today to also be planet first brands?
I think it goes hand in hand, and it kind of touched on it a little bit earlier about being in one with nature and as part of the planet. Obviously, plastic is, everyone knows, is an affliction on society, on the globe. You have to do your part for it. So we teamed up with a company called Clean Hub, and they're based in Berlin, but they basically stop plastic before it gets to the ocean. And so that for us was a no-brainer. I think is important. Our customers, that's what they would want. They're conscientious people, so it fits with that. And actually, we're looking now around the packaging in particular, and so on delivery, sustainability with regards to the wool insulation to keep the products frozen. So all of that it is important to us. I'd like to become B Corp, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done on that. Overall, and it's quite intensive, I think, from what I've spoken to some people about in terms of the amount of paperwork you've got to do. But that is certainly an aspiration where we want to go. But yeah, it is important. It really is important, and I think if you don't have a healthy planet, you don't have healthy humans. So you need to have one eye on it and do your bit.
Yes. Now you just said about the challenges with all the paperwork that needs to get done. But what has been the most challenging part of building a nutrition company in a very competitive wellness market? And I think I already know what's kept you going. It is your son. But again, what has kept you going on this?
Yes. From a selfish perspective, it is my son, because but it was more about time. So I worked corporate before. They don't care. They don't care about your time with your family typically, and that was something I couldn't wrestle with. I couldn't justify. So I really wanted to set this up so I could do it with a purpose, that I could have the flexibility to be here in London, so I could see my son, be there, pick him up after nursery, and then schools. From a selfish perspective, that's what keeps me going, because it isn't easy. It isn't easy at all, in particular with the current time. It's and it's only going to get more difficult. I'll be lying if I said there isn't nights where I can feel it. I can feel it in my chest of anxiety of it not working or something happening. But you have to do these things. Like, so I wanted to be able to say to him, like, you've done everything you can. You try as much as you possibly can. What can you live with? And that's the only thing I can really live with from that perspective. So that's what drives me. I also know that people need this. I know that. You look around everywhere and people need something like this. So that's another thing that keeps me going. I mean, in terms of building the company, there is so many challenges. I once had a friend say to me not that long ago, he goes, "Oh, you're a business owner. You don't do anything, do you?" And I just stared at him. I was like, "Oh, I've got like 17 different jobs. You know, what planet are you on that you think that you don't do anything?" Well, I don't know if it was just a bit of a dig, to be honest, and maybe a bit of envy. I don't know, but you have to make decisions. It's constant problem solving, which I don't mind doing. But I think the biggest challenge is it's winning hearts and minds, isn't it? And when it comes to food, when it comes to diet, people are very tribal, and it's almost like they become blinkered and they're set in their ways. And if you say anything about that particular, viewpoint they have, it's almost like it's an insult on their identity. And that's it. People just hunker down and they switch off then. It's like a dagger to the heart, really. So, I think that's been the most challenging. And also I'm not going to I won't name any names, but it's the spurious marketing that health companies come out with. I really detest it. It makes me a bit depressed, to be honest. I get really irritated by it because I think it's exploitative. I think it's predatory, and it's playing on this notion that people aren't thinking properly. I won't name the name, but recently, last week, I went into a well-known supermarket and I went to go. I was doing a bit of competitor research, and went to the till, and it wasn't it wasn't a meal deal. I was, it's not a meal deal. And he said to me, this particular product, "Oh no, that's the meal." And I'm like, "It's not a meal." I was like, "You're selling that as a meal? There's no food in it." I couldn't get my head around it. And but it was deliberately placed in a position within the store that people grab on the go. They think it's food. It's not food. It's not really. It's got loads of rubbish in it. But they're very good at marketing. Very good at marketing. And this is the most challenging part, I find, because these companies are exceptional at marketing. Some of the big ones. And ultimately, all these companies do. They just become marketing companies. So how do you compete with that? But I sort of see it as like when they're trying to fudge things to make it fit to a particular health narrative, I always think there's a little gap. There's always a gap for if you're transparent, if you're honest, and you're genuine about your motives, which we are. You can't really challenge that. In my head, you can't challenge that. The truth will always find its way in one way or another, and I believe that. And I'm not necessarily interested in people pleasing for everyone. You either understand the product, you either understand the message, you understand what we're trying to do, or you don't. Obviously, we want to try and get the message out to as many people as possible so they do understand, because there is an educational piece around this, and it is typically a little bit longer. And when you're up against the big boys, which are quite frankly very, very good at spin, that's probably the most difficult thing. But even more reason to keep going.
Yes, and I completely agree with that. I've also seen here in South Africa, there's some of the supermarkets that have placed all the high sugar foods. They're not placing it in the aisles where you need to check out anymore. But then other mainstream supermarkets, they still have these high sugar foods and ultra processed foods right where you check out. So then you usually just take a few. So It's definitely a mindset change, and the message should just keep going, and we should keep putting it out there. And hopefully more and more people will become aware of what is going on and the marketing tricks that these other companies are using.
Yeah, and I think they will do. I mean, here in the UK, there's the Labour government were looking at this quite extensively in their early term, because it's starting to hit the NHS in the pocket. There's so many sick people, and now they're like, okay, well, this is costing taxpayers too much money. How do we prevent this? And so they're starting to introduce certain programs, but it's nowhere near enough. It's nominal, really, but you have to be grateful that they are at least thinking that way. But it would help if they did improve the food that was in the hospitals in the first place. If you're going to practice what you preach, that would be a good place to start.
I haven't been in a hospital in a few years now, so I don't know what is being served here. So if there's something that you can give to the listeners today, something practical that they can use as a tip for them to start improving their gut health, what would you say is the best thing?
I mean, it's multifaceted. There's quite a few things you say, but I would say drink more water to start with, actually. Particularly if you're struggling to go for like days on end, maybe it might be dehydration. That's something most people, I think they drink enough water and they don't, and that can impact your skin, your cognitive function, if you get a little bit brain fog. So that's what I would start doing as a very simple thing. As soon as you get up in the morning, 2 pints of water, and that's the start. And you'll probably feel a difference with that.
Now, my last question to you is there one book or tool or a practice that had a profound impact on your life recently?
I think in terms of a practice, taking a breath, or breath work in general. Just when things get a little bit overwhelmed, deep breath, and then you can kind of just focus a little bit, and it resets you. So I notice a big difference when I've ran and when I haven't ran. And that's because really it's breath work for me. It's a meditative state. I have my music on, a beat, breathe in, I'm literally zoned out. So as a practice, it is profound for me. I know it's a huge difference in everything. So that combined with nutrition and eating properly, there's no point just doing one thing and ignoring the rest, because it comes back to that very first point that we spoke about wellness and balance. You need to look at all of these other factors as well and try and keep them all at an even level. So for me, breath work and running as part of that is the most recent significant impact, I would say, on that.
Yeah, I also like breath work. Since last year, I read it somewhere. It is a sigh, where you just literally, you take a breath and you sigh. And it helps so much with just a momentary stress relief that you can focus again on whatever you're busy with and just calms your mind. So breath work is Amazing. But Carl, that actually wraps up our episode for today. And I hope it left the listeners with a fresh perspective on fiber and functional food and the role gut health plays in mental clarity, energy, and overall wellness. And a huge thank you to you, Carl, for sharing both the personal journey behind FiiHii and the science that powers Frinks. Your commitment to making nutrition practical and transparent and truly beneficial is something we can all take inspiration from, especially in a world filled with overcomplicated wellness messages. So thank you for that. Is there anything else you want to mention to the listeners today?
On the spot, no, just thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it. Some great questions, thought-provoking, and I hope people get some real benefit from it.
Thank you so much. So if this episode sparked any new ideas or made gut health feel just a bit more accessible, I'd love for you to share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us continue to bring you honest, evidence-based conversations that make a real difference. Until next time, eat well, think well, and be well.